If you watch the Spy Family anime, you've undoubtedly asked yourself more than once, is this going to be one of those shows where the two characters pretending to be a couple actually end up together, which has probably led to you asking, are Loid and Yor in love with one another, or will they even fall in love? Well, in today's video, we're going to answer that question and give you all the details that you need to know to get a proper answer to the question, are Loid and Yor in love, by going over every single sign Loid and Yor are falling in love with one another. Now, currently in the story, the two aren't much more than anything other than a sham married couple, but there have been numerous signs that the two have developed strong feelings for one another, with some of the biggest reveals coming from the character Yor, which makes a lot of sense given she's a character written that's much easier to understand, especially when she begins to start drinking and blurting out her feelings, like she does when she cussed at Loid when she thought that Loid was replacing her as his wife with Fiona, Loid's co-worker at the hospital, as well as his fellow spy. Whereas Loid is a character who is a bit harder to crack because he knows how to hide his emotions due to the years of his training, but even Loid has peeled back the curtains to reveal his feelings for Yor, which is important to note because Loid is someone who understands human behavior and human emotions, but he doesn't understand his own emotions towards Yor, but people who know Loid can see the changes that are occurring inside of him. However, let's dive a little bit deeper here and look at every single major sign in chronological order that prove that Loid and Yor are going to be falling in love. So in chapter 2 of the manga, when Loid first meets Yor, he realizes there's something different about her because she slipped past his defenses in the clothing store and how easily she sensed that he was staring at her, which is why he stated he was beginning to start losing his edge as a spy. He then says yes when he tells Yor that he finds her attractive, but he isn't his usual confident self. He's sweating and he's pausing while he does so. It's a clear sign of him being thrown off while she looks directly at him for the very first time. Loid and Yor in the manga are drawn with a subtle hint of a blush when they make plans for that Saturday to go to the party that Yor was invited to. In all the other panels prior to this, there hadn't been any faint signs of a blush except when Yor looked directly at Loid. Taking a step further in the same manga chapter, when Yor proposed to Loid, her initial thoughts while she did so was her blushing, which was another sign she was falling for him because she states that he's the only man that she may ever meet who will accept her as she actually is. In chapter 3, our lovable telepath Anya, who has the ability to access both of their thoughts, teased the two about them kissing, and both Loid and Yor blushed at the thought of them kissing while telling off Anya. In chapter 5, Loid had been in the process of trying to calm down his mind when Anya got asked which of her mothers she liked best, but the moment that Yor raised her voice and apparently seemed ready to strike and was told that Anya loved Yor less than her original mom, the demon came out of Loid and he almost threw a punch at the man who was speaking to Yor, but instead he punched the table to, quote, kill a mosquito. It wasn't Anya being put through the works that made him snap. It was the assault on Yor that made him get pushed to that point because he went from telling himself to calm down to all of a sudden having to restrain himself mid-punch after hearing Yor being thrown under the bus. In chapter 6 of the manga, when Yor and Loid are getting into a brief fight while Yor is drunk, Loid compliments on her strength, going so far as to say that she might actually be able to kill him, which we know is important because when he's later pressed on what he likes about Yor the most, he states her strength was one of those reasons. While strength of her character is one side of it, her physical strength was also the other side of what he meant here, and there are clues later on in the story to back that up. Now, in chapter 7, we see Yor wanting to cook for Loid and Anya since she knows that Loid will be coming home late, which is important to keep in mind because this isn't the first time for her wanting to cook being shown as a straight line towards her growing feelings for Loid. In fact, later on in the manga, she's so dead set on becoming a better cook for Loid that she's taking cooking lessons in order to improve. Yor believes that Anya is really Loid's daughter. Her wanting to cook for Loid's daughter and wanting in her heart to be a good mother to Anya is a sign of her feelings because willingly embracing that role of the wife to try and serve the husband and serve the child is a really huge deal because that's a state of vulnerability for Yor. Her urge to do so came after seeing the other mothers in the park with their kids, but by doting on Anya, she also proved her worth to Loid, who she believes to be Anya's father. Different people have different love languages, and one of the things that we've seen from Yor constantly is that her love language comes in the form of giving gifts. One of the most intimate gifts that can be given is a home-cooked meal made from scratch. Now, in chapter 8, we see Yor blushing when she sees what she thinks is Loid being a attentive father and super dedicated to his daughter when she tells him it can be really hard sending your kids off into the world. This is something that we'll continue to see. Yor finding Loid's dedication to Anya is something that makes him stand out in her eye, and it causes her to smile like she does in chapter 8.5 when she blushes upon seeing Loid win Anya a giant penguin doll, which leads her to say that Loid is super cute when he gets intense. In chapter 10 of the manga, we see Yor open up enough to Loid about her childhood, which is a sign that she's beginning to feel comfortable with Loid and wants to share parts of herself with him, which in turn is laying a stronger foundation for the relationship, because in a phony marriage based off of a lie, she's introducing elements of the truth to try and make that connection, and she goes as far as to uplift Loid by telling him that he needs to uplift himself more when it comes to Anya, which shows how emotionally invested in him she's become. In chapter 12, we see Yor blushing when Yuri asks her what's her pet name that she calls Loid, and she breaks out into an enormous blush when she accidentally gets her hand touched by Loid, which immediately made her brother jealous and suspicious. In the same chapter, when Loid says that he will kiss Yor, the thought of kissing Loid breaks Yor out into a blush, and she's drawn with sound effects and a rapidly beating heart, and when Loid closes in to kiss her, most of her face is turned red from blushing. In chapter 13, Yor's eyes get smaller and the blush grows as she wonders what it'd be like to kiss Loid for the first time. After she downs a bottle of wine, Yor quickly mounts Loid in a manner that threatens to change Spy Family's rating from a wholesome anime to not so much of a wholesome anime, which leads to Yuri calling out how lewd Yor had gotten with Loid. Later on in the chapter, Yor blushes at the thought of sharing a bed with Loid, and as she falls asleep, she thinks to herself how upset she'll be if Yuri attacks Loid, showing how much she's invested emotionally in him and how protective she is of Loid now. One of our strongest bits of evidence comes in chapter 14, where Loid makes Yor blush when he's placed a tracker on her collar, and he does so in a way that she thought that he was going to kiss her. We get a scene where Loid is directly told he needs to keep his emotions out of the mission when it comes to Yor, and that this is the price of the life that he lives as a spy. In short, in this game, there's no room for love. Love will get you killed. But upon hearing Yor say that she's glad that she married Loid, Loid tells her that they need to celebrate their fake one-year anniversary as a couple. The next strongest piece of evidence for the two of them falling in love comes after the events of chapter 30, where Fiona Frost finally gets introduced as Agent Nightfall. And it's one of the few signs here that's undeniable proof that our favorite assassin and our favorite spy are falling in love. When Yor hears from Fiona that Loid has been potentially saying he's fed up with her at work, she gets fearful that Loid might replace her, and for a time she puts herself down as she thinks that she doesn't deserve him. But that self-doubt turns into her pledging herself to trying to become a better wife to Loid, and when Loid smiles at her, it irritates Fiona because she realizes that as Loid and Yor are staring deep into each other's eyes, he's smiling the first sincere smile that she's ever seen him smile before, which means that this is no longer a mission for Loid. The only person who doesn't realize it is actually Loid himself. In chapter 34, Yor's fear of Loid replacing her with Fiona leads to her playing a match of tennis with Agent Nightfall, and she's so eager to prove herself that she uses enough string to slice the ball into pieces on her first string, and on her second swing, she destroys Fiona's racket afterwards with one swing. Yor is shown sitting on the couch later on, holding her pillow deep, clearly in thought about her fears of being replaced by Loid. In chapter 35, she's moping around at the thought of Loid leaving her, and when they go on a date later on that night, Yor's insecurities about the situation bubble over, especially as she drinks and she goes from saying that she knows that she doesn't have a right to be part of Loid's personal life to her having her words caught in her throat because she realizes how much she doesn't want to leave Loid's life, and she drunkenly asks Loid if Fiona is somebody that Loid loves, and she's pouting when she says that Loid used to call Yor pretty, and she assumed that it was a lie and that Loid had been lying to her the whole time, which leads to Loid realizing that Yor has feelings for her. He tries to kiss her in order to keep his mission going on, and after she begins blushing as Loid asks her to be his real wife, with real being bolded in that sentence, Yor knocks him out with a single kick due to her embarrassment. However, right after that, as Yor is allowing Loid to sleep on her lap, Loid dreams about his mother because hearing Yor singing remind him of his mother. According to some scientific studies, 2/3 of all men choose a woman to be their wife who possesses similar traits of their own mothers, and that strong connection that he made between Yor and his childhood memory was a huge telltale sign, especially when we consider that Loid's tragic origin story that deals with the death of his mother. Loid then shares this memory of his mother with Yor and tells her that he does remember one thing about his mother, which is that she was strong, and that he considers Yor to be strong as well, which up until now, Loid offering a little bit of truth in their relationship is just like what Yor did when Yor did the same thing to him. And just as Yor told him that he needed to believe in himself, Loid tells her the same thing, which leads to Yor blushing like crazy. Yor then goes on to compare living life in Loid's home like living with her brother, where she formed an attachment that was so strong she never wanted to leave it behind, which shows how Yor's heart is beginning to warm up to Loid. Now, when we jump ahead to chapter 45, the client who Yor is protecting notices the change in Yor when she begins to start talking about her false family, and when asked if this fake family is solely for the purposes of maintaining her cover as an assassin, Yor is drawn with a sad expression on her face when she says that she guesses that that's the truth, which is telling given how slow Yor was to answer that question. In chapter 49, Yor is told by her director to stay focused on the job, which is another sign that she's thinking about Loid and Anya, because previously the director told her not to worry about running into her family since they were on a lower part of the ship, and as she's keeping watch, she does the exact opposite of what she's told, which is she begins to start focusing on the regret that she has from not reaching out to Loid and Anya to spend more time with them on this cruise ship, and she envisions herself spending time with them as a real family on the ship. In chapter 53 of the manga, when Yor is fighting an entire group of trained assassins, she's no longer focused on the fight. Instead, her mind is focused on Loid and Anya, with her at first recalling how if she died on the mission, the agency would just tell Loid and Anya that she was transferred without a single warning, and it led to Yor calling herself heartless if she were to do something like that to him, which is a sign that she's worried about hurting Loid and Anya by dying, the two people who aren't even her real family. But she thinks of a scenario right away where she might be able to return to them against the protocol with a brand new hairstyle, and how Loid will react to seeing her again with brand new hair, which almost gets her disemboweled in the fight. And when she's almost killed again for a second time in the fight, her last thoughts among them are things about picking up Loid's shirt from the laundry cleaners, and it's her memory of Loid and Anya and their dog Bond that gives her the strength to shatter the sword that's pointed at her neck, and it's her thinking that Loid would respect her that gives her the strength to stand to her feet. In chapter 55, after her client tells her that she will be praying for Yor and her family to find true happiness, Yor is shown spacing out and is reminded to stay focused on being an assassin by her director. This is important because when the same client asked Yor was her family a cover, she said that she guessed so, and took long enough to reply that the client's face was shown studying Yor's face, which is an obvious sign that the girl was saying, look, Yor, I know the truth. I know you love that man, don't you? Now, in chapter 56 of the manga, when she's walking alongside Loid as they watch Anya, Yor says with a smile on her face that she feels at peace now, and is shown smiling harder when Loid says he feels the same way. She's so comfortable around Loid during this time that she falls asleep on his shoulder, and Loid picks her up into his arms along with Anya, smiling down specifically at Yor as she sleeps, which causes those people watching to start smiling, and the women who are watching the scene begin to blush at the sight. In chapter 59, when Yor is asked by Anya's classmate Becky why Loid loves her, she smiles and recalls Loid's words about "you're strong, Yor," and then proceeds to win a prize for Loid in a game that requires a test of strength. Now, those are all the signs we have as of chapter 62.4 for why Loid and Yor are in love. If you're still not convinced about their budding romance happening as a slow burn, you'll want to check out these other Spy Family videos you're seeing on the screen right now.